The stars burned cold and distant above the bridge of the Coalition flagship Resolute, their light slicing through the darkness of space like distant promises. Captain Marcus Hale stood with his hands clasped behind his back, watching the map of the Kalor system flicker with red blips, the signs of Dominion fleets massing for an attack. He was not impressed. Humans had faced worse, and worse had never beaten them. Yet here he was, a human, chosen to protect an alien princess. And not just any princess, Serenia of Kalor, heir to a kingdom with technology, psionics, and traditions Marcus barely understood. To the Coalition, the choice was controversial. Humans were considered unpredictable, even primitive, compared to the genetically enhanced soldiers and psionic knights they normally deployed. "You're aware this will raise eyebrows," Lieutenant Vara said beside him. She was a Kalorian liaison, her violet eyes shimmering like amethyst under the light. "The Council doesn't usually assign humans as personal guardians. You might find yourself unwelcome." Marcus gave a half smile, the kind that had earned him both respect and scorn back on Earth. "Good. I've never done anything worth doing without a few people disapproving." Vara shook her head, smiling despite herself. "I was not expecting you to answer like that. The Council may not understand your value until it is too late." Marcus didn't respond. He had learned long ago that humans earned respect through action, not words, and if destiny had placed him here, he would prove why. The transmission came just then. A shimmering projection of Serenia herself appeared, standing atop the palace balcony on Kalor Prime. Even across the distance of space, her presence demanded attention. She was tall, regal, her skin the pale gold of her people, and her hair flowed like liquid silver. But it was her eyes, stormy blue, fierce and knowing, that unsettled Marcus the most. "I am Princess Serenia," she said, her voice calm but strong. "I understand a human will be my guardian. I do not wish for politics or pride to interfere. You will act according to your judgment, Captain Hale. That is all I require." The projection faded, leaving Marcus staring at the empty bridge, heart pounding faster than it had in years. Her words had weight. They were simple but commanding. He had been trained to follow orders, yes, but this was trust, and it was rare. "Looks like you've got her confidence already," Vara said. "And that is something even psionic warriors sometimes fail to earn." Marcus only nodded. Confidence could be earned with action, but respect? That was won with survival. And survival was the human way. The shuttle that carried Marcus to Kalor Prime was small and built for speed. As he descended through the planet's dense atmosphere, the city unfolded below him. Spires of crystal and metal jutted toward the sky, reflecting the twin suns of Kalor. The streets were filled with Kalorian citizens, moving with a grace Marcus had never seen in human cities. Every motion seemed deliberate, calculated, as if life itself were a dance choreographed to perfection. And yet, despite the beauty, he noticed the tension, the subtle fear in the citizens' eyes, the guards moving faster than necessary, the way buildings were reinforced like fortresses. This world was preparing for war, and every corner whispered of danger. He stepped onto the royal palace grounds, his boots echoing against polished stone. Kalorian guards watched him with a mixture of curiosity and thinly veiled disdain. Marcus met their gazes evenly, unflinching. The human body was weaker than a Kalorian's in strength, but humans had something else: adaptability, cunning, and a stubborn refusal to give up. The court awaited. Serenia entered with a quiet grace, her eyes immediately finding Marcus. He felt the weight of her stare, something beyond mere assessment. There was recognition there, though he did not understand it. "You are Marcus Hale," she said, her voice low, almost testing him. "I have read your record. You have survived countless battles, yet I wonder, can you survive here?" Marcus inclined his head respectfully. "I've survived worse than politics and court intrigue. I expect to survive here too." Serenia's lips curved into the faintest smile. "We shall see. My people expect perfection and my enemies expect failure. It is your choice which they will receive." The first test came sooner than either of them expected. A minor explosion rocked the palace grounds the following evening. Alarms rang, and Marcus reacted instinctively. He leaped toward the source, finding several palace guards pinned down by a sudden attack from unknown assailants. Humans had trained him to read chaos like a map. He moved where others hesitated, assessing threats instantly. He pushed a guard out of the line of fire and returned a blast that sent the attackers scattering. It was unorthodox, brutal, but effective. The attackers were repelled before they could reach the princess. Serenia watched from a safe balcony, expression unreadable. Once the threat passed, she descended to the courtyard. "Your methods are different," she said softly, almost hesitant, "but effective. Kaelorian knights would have fallen in hesitation. You did not hesitate." Marcus gave a slight shrug. "I don't think I act. Humans are good at acting when thinking slows others down." Her gaze lingered on him, long and searching. Marcus felt an odd unease, as if she knew something about him that he had never told a living soul. "You will need to adapt to my world," she said finally, "and I will need to understand yours. Only then can we survive what is coming." "I don't do easy," Marcus replied, "and I don't do survival half-measured." There was a silence between them, one that was not uncomfortable but charged. For the first time, Marcus felt a connection to someone entirely unlike himself, someone who seemed to see him, not just his skill or his reputation. Over the next few days, Marcus was tested relentlessly, not by attacks but by the Kaelorian court itself. Diplomats sneered at his rough speech, his blunt tactics, and his lack of understanding of Kaelorian etiquette. He ignored them. Humans had thrived for centuries in environments where failure meant death. If alien nobles could not respect that, it was their problem. Yet every night he found Serenia waiting in the garden, the twin moons reflecting in her silver hair. She asked questions about Earth, about war, about how he had survived when everything seemed against him. And for the first time in years, Marcus found himself talking, not about tactics, not about survival, but about hope. "I picked this human because..." She began one night, her voice soft and distant. Marcus turned to her, curiosity piqued, but she only shook her head. "Never mind. It is not yet time." Marcus accepted it. Humans knew patience, and if fate had placed him here, he had learned to trust that it would reveal its path when the moment was right. Days turned into a week. Reports of Dominion movements grew more urgent. Marcus trained relentlessly, adapting Kaelorian weaponry to human tactics. The palace became a crucible, forging him not just as a protector but as a symbol. A human who could stand against alien fleets, against prophecy, and against expectation. The council debated. They whispered that the human was reckless, unfit for Kaelor, but when assassins struck during the first official banquet, Marcus proved them all wrong. He shielded the princess with his own body, neutralizing the attackers with precise, brutal efficiency. Humans were unpredictable, and unpredictability was deadly. Serenia's gaze followed him throughout the chaos, calm and calculating. Once the last attacker fell, she stepped to him, her hand brushing lightly against his shoulder. "You may have been chosen by the council," she said softly, "but I have chosen you myself." Marcus barely had time to process her words before the alarm rang again. The war was coming, and the human protector had to stand ready. But somewhere deep within him he felt a spark, a strange certainty that he was exactly where he was meant to be. And for the first time in a long while, Marcus Hale felt that survival might mean more than just staying alive. The morning sun rose over Kaelor Prime, casting long silver shadows across the palace spires. Captain Marcus Hale stood on the balcony overlooking the city. From up here the streets seemed calm, almost peaceful, but Marcus knew better. War was coming, and the Dominion never rested. His first week as Princess Serenia's guardian had been nothing short of exhausting. The Kaelorian court whispered behind his back, alien nobles looking down at him for being a human, a species they considered primitive, slow, and weak. Marcus had grown used to it. Humans survived because they adapted, and he intended to prove that survival was more than strength or technology. It was will. "Captain Hale," said Vera, stepping onto the balcony beside him, "the council is requesting a report on the security status of the palace." Marcus gave a small shrug. "Security is fine. The palace may look beautiful, but it's defensible. They don't know it yet, but if the Dominion attacks, they'll regret underestimating humans." Vera smiled faintly. "You are unlike any other warrior they have known." He didn't answer. Words rarely mattered. Action did. The first real test came that very day. During the grand assembly of Kaelorian nobles, a messenger burst into the throne room, pale with fear. "Your Highness," he stammered, "scouts report Dominion ships entering the outer orbit. They will strike within the hour." Gasps filled the chamber. The nobles murmured frantic calculations, psionic knights whispering suggestions to the council. They looked at Marcus, uncertain and wary, as if his human mind could not grasp the complexity of interstellar warfare. Marcus ignored them all. He moved quickly to the Co. The twin moons of Kalor Prime cast pale silver light over the palace courtyard, turning the alien architecture into a landscape of shadows and brilliance. Captain Marcus Hale stood at the edge of the balcony, surveying the city below. Despite the calm appearance, he knew the Dominion forces were regrouping. Every movement across the planet, every minor disturbance in orbit told him that the war was far from over. Serenia joined him quietly, her footsteps barely making a sound on the polished floor. She leaned against the railing, gazing at the moons, her expression unreadable. Marcus did not need words to know she had been thinking. Kalorian royalty always had something on their minds, and usually it was complicated, political or dangerous. "You've adapted well," she said softly. "The soldiers respect you. The council is wary, but they respect your instincts. She paused, turning to look at him fully. "I do not just respect you. I trust you." Marcus arched an eyebrow, unused to such words from anyone, let alone an alien princess. Trust was something humans earned slowly, through deeds and survival. "You're trusting a human to protect you from an entire Dominion fleet?" he asked, his tone lightly teasing, though the seriousness of the situation remained. She smiled faintly, a rare expression that softened her usual regal composure. "Not just any human," she said, stepping closer. "I have waited a long time for you. Longer than you can imagine. I picked you long before you came." Marcus froze, the words sinking deep. He had faced enemies who had tried to kill him, storms that had threatened to crush him, and battles that had tested every skill he had learned. But this was unexpected. He searched her eyes, trying to find a hint of jest, of manipulation, anything, but found only sincerity, steady and unwavering. "You, what?" he finally asked, voice low. She took a deep breath. "The seers of Kalor have visions. They saw a protector, a warborn, one from another world, one who would arrive when the time was right. They showed me a human, scarred, unyielding, and fearless. They said he would decide the fate of Kalor Prime, and perhaps all of Kalorian history. I waited for that human, Marcus, and then you arrived." Marcus ran a hand through his hair, a habit he had whenever he was unsure. Humans were taught to face reality, not prophecy, but even he could not deny the uncanny truth in her words. The timing, the skills, the way he had been thrust into this war, it all felt as though it had been designed or predicted long before he had set foot on Kalor Prime. I don't believe in prophecies," he said honestly. "Humans survive because of choice, not fate. Because we fight, because we adapt, because we refuse to give up." Serenia's eyes softened as though she understood his resistance. "And that is why you are perfect," she said. "Because even if fate brought you here, you will not blindly follow it. You will act. You will decide. And that is exactly what the visions could not have predicted. The human will to choose, the human courage, the human heart." Marcus felt a strange weight in his chest. Humans were not supposed to be legends in alien worlds. They were supposed to struggle, adapt, and sometimes fail. Yet here he was, standing next to a princess who claimed the universe itself had whispered his arrival long before he knew it. "I don't know what to say," he admitted finally. "I'm just a soldier, a human. I do what I must to survive and protect. I don't think about destiny." "You don't have to," she replied. "But destiny has already thought about you, and now you will decide how to act." There was a silence between them, filled only by the soft rustle of the evening breeze and the distant hum of the city below. Marcus realized something profound. He had never been chosen for something like this before. Not by humans, not by his commanders, not by chance. He had survived countless battles, yes, but this was different. This was purpose. Serenia stepped closer, placing a hand lightly on the balcony rail between them. "I have seen the cost of war," she said quietly. "I have seen kingdoms fall and heroes die. I do not wish to see you die, but I trust that you will do what must be done, not because of prophecy, but because it is right, and because you will protect those who cannot protect themselves." Marcus looked at her, studying her expression. There was no manipulation, no coercion, no political games, Only honesty, respect, and an unspoken bond that had formed in the heat of battle and the quiet of strategy rooms. For the first time in his life, he felt that his choices mattered not just to him, but to an entire world. "I don't know if I'm a hero," he admitted. "I just survive. That's all I've ever done, and I protect the people I care about." Serenia nodded slowly. "Then you are exactly what Kaelor needs. Not a hero, not a legend. A protector, a human. You do not have to be more than that." The days following their conversation were tense. Dominion scouts had been spotted on the outer orbit, moving closer with each passing hour. Marcus focused on preparing the palace defenses while integrating his human tactics with Kaelorian strategies. He trained squads of soldiers to fight unpredictably, using guerrilla maneuvers in combination with psionic support. He adapted alien weaponry, introduced ambush techniques from frontier worlds, and organized civilians into support networks, all with the same human stubbornness and ingenuity that had kept him alive for decades. Serenia observed closely, participating when she could, learning from Marcus's unconventional methods. She found herself impressed, not by strength but by creativity, courage, and the human ability to see opportunity where others saw only danger. Every day her trust in him deepened. Every day the bond forged in fire and danger grew stronger. One night, after a particularly long training session, Serenia invited Marcus to walk with her through the palace gardens. The twin moons shone down on the alien flora, casting long shadows across glowing flowers that swayed in the evening breeze. "I've seen many humans," she said quietly, "but none like you. You are different. I feel as though I have waited for you my entire life." Marcus glanced at her, surprised by her words. Humans were not used to waiting, and certainly not for someone else to choose them. "I didn't come here for you," he said, trying to keep his tone neutral. "I came because they sent me. That's all." Serenia smiled, a hint of sadness in her eyes. "Perhaps, but I chose you in my way. Long before you arrived, I knew that someone would come, and I knew it would be you." Marcus swallowed hard. Prophecy or not, her words carried weight. There was something in them, something beyond chance or coincidence, something that made him feel needed. And humans, despite their pride and stubbornness, sometimes thrived on that, on knowing that their actions could protect others, that their lives mattered in a world larger than themselves. "I'll do my best," he said simply, "to protect you. To protect Kaelor, that's all I can promise." Serenia nodded, satisfied with the answer. She reached out, briefly brushing her fingers against his hand. A simple gesture, but one that spoke volumes. Marcus did not pull away. Humans were not accustomed to waiting for destiny, but sometimes destiny arrived anyway. The following morning, Marcus oversaw the final preparations for the incoming Dominion assault. Scouts reported that multiple fleets were moving into position, and the palace council began to panic. Marcus remained calm, issuing orders with clarity and precision. His human instincts for survival and combat had become Kaelorian strategy in miniature, a blend of discipline, cunning, and unpredictability. Serenia watched from the command center, noting how he integrated human ingenuity with alien technology. She realized something profound. Prophecy had brought him here, yes, but human courage and determination were the true weapons that would shape the future of Kaelor. As the Dominion fleets drew closer, Marcus glanced at Serenia. "Whatever happens," he said quietly, "we survive together." Her eyes met his, steady and unwavering. "I trust you," she replied, "and I have chosen you." "Long before you came," Marcus nodded. Humans did not always believe in fate, but humans survived, and sometimes survival was the greatest prophecy of all. Kaelor Prime trembled under the shadow of the Dominion fleet. Hundreds of warships hung in orbit like predators circling their prey, ready to strike at any moment. Below, the planet's cities gleamed under the twin suns, but their beauty belied the danger that approached. Captain Marcus Hale stood in the palace command room, analyzing the incoming signals with a calm intensity that left even Kaelorian generals uneasy. The Dominion was vast, experienced, and ruthless. Their ships outnumbered Kaelor's by at least 3-1, and their ground forces were elite, trained for planetary invasions, programmed to conquer without mercy. Kaelorian warriors had fought in many wars, but nothing on this scale. Nothing that required a human mind to turn the tide. "They'll strike the northern landing zones first," Marcus said, pointing at the holographic map. "It's the easiest approach. Standard Dominion strategy. But we're not going to play standard. Lieutenant Vera tilted her head, surprised. You mean a counterattack? No, Marcus replied. A trap. We'll lure them in, split their forces, and force them into a fight they didn't plan for. They rely on numbers and predictability. We'll give them neither, the council murmured uneasily. Captain, one elder began, this is unorthodox. The palace cannot risk civilians. The city, I said they won't be at risk, Marcus interrupted calmly. We'll use the tunnels, mines, hidden routes. We'll turn the city into a defensive maze. The victory over the Dominion's first wave had brought Kalor Prime a brief moment of relief. Streets were cleared, tunnels repaired, and soldiers celebrated quietly among the people. Yet the palace high above the city hummed with tension. Not all threats came from outside the world. Some came from within. Captain Marcus Hale sat in the council chamber reviewing reports and checking on security details. His human instincts told him something was off. Kalorian nobles, once quietly skeptical, now stared at him with thinly veiled hostility. He had defended the princess, defeated the Dominion, and trained their soldiers, yet whispers of mistrust continued. Humans, Marcus had learned long ago, often thrived in chaos, but not everyone appreciated it. Serenia entered quietly, her presence calming the room. She had just returned from inspecting the volunteers who had defended the tunnels. The city is safe for now, she said softly. Her eyes, however, betrayed concern. The council? They are uneasy. Some believe your methods were reckless. Others think you have too much influence. Marcus leaned back in his chair. Influence isn't a weapon. Survival is. If the council thinks I'm dangerous, let them. They will see the results soon enough. Serenia shook her head. They do not understand humans. They do not understand you. The unease among the nobles soon turned into action. A secret vote was called to remove Marcus from his position as the princess's guardian. They cited concerns over his unorthodox methods, his human unpredictability, and the fear that his growing influence over Kalorian soldiers would undermine their authority. Word of the council's vote reached Marcus through the whispers of the palace staff. He did not react with anger, only calculation. Humans survived because they could anticipate threats and respond decisively. If the council wished to act against him, he would ensure that their plans failed without endangering the princess or the city. Serenia confronted the council in a private chamber. I will not allow Captain Hale to be removed, she said firmly. He has protected me, our people, and Kalor Prime. Without him, we are defenseless. The council, stiff with pride and tradition, argued back. Your Highness, we respect you, but the human is dangerous. His tactics are reckless. He could lead us to ruin. You speak as if survival is weakness, Serenia replied, her voice rising. He has proven more than any of you. He has saved lives, outsmarted the Dominion, and trained our soldiers. He is not dangerous, he is necessary. Marcus watched from the balcony above, unseen by the council. He had faced betrayal before, not from enemies, but from allies, from those who could not see beyond their own pride. Humans survived because they adapted to betrayal. Marcus had no doubt he would survive this too. But he would not survive it quietly. When the Dominion attempted a second wave of attacks, Marcus's instincts again proved vital. Scouts reported hidden Dominion agents moving inside the city, attempting sabotage within the palace itself. Marcus mobilized his human-trained units immediately, setting traps and isolating threats before they could harm anyone. As Dominion agents were captured and neutralized, the council's doubts began to crumble. Marcus had anticipated infiltration that even Kalorian generals had overlooked. He moved with precision, timing, and an understanding of chaos that no rigid protocol could match. Kalorian soldiers, once skeptical, now followed his commands with unquestioning trust. Serenia observed quietly, her heart swelling with pride and relief. He does not merely survive, she whispered to herself. He excels where others fail. He sees what others cannot. In the palace halls, whispers turned to open confrontation. Elder nobles approached the council chambers, demanding explanations for Marcus's continued position. The council, caught between tradition and reality, struggled to maintain control. But when a minor explosion shook the outer walls, a Dominion saboteur intercepted by Marcus's planning, the argument ended. The human had anticipated every move, protected the city and prevented disaster. No words could outweigh results. Serenia turned to Marcus later that night in the palace gardens. They tried to remove you, she said softly. But you proved why you are here. You are more than a guardian. You are the protector Kaelor never expected. Marcus gave a slight, tired smile. Humans survive. Humans protect, that's all. She shook her head, smiling faintly. No, that is not all. You inspire hope. You show courage, and that is worth more than all the traditions in the world. The Council's internal conflict did not end, but Marcus had won their begrudging respect. Kaelorian soldiers who had been doubtful now recognized his tactics as essential. Volunteers from the city, once fearful of conflict, now moved with confidence and courage inspired by his leadership. Even the palace staff who had once whispered against him now acknowledged his insight and skill. In private, Serenia approached Marcus again. You are unlike any being I have ever known, she said. The seer's visions were true in some ways, but you surpass what they could see. You do not blindly follow destiny. You create it, Marcus nodded slowly. I don't create destiny. I survive and I protect. The rest happens because humans act when others hesitate. She reached out, lightly touching his arm. It is enough. It is more than enough. Days later, the Dominion attempted a third assault, this time more coordinated and massive. Marcus's human-led forces were ready. He anticipated every maneuver, using traps, tunnels, and improvised defenses to frustrate and confuse the enemy. Kaelorian warriors moved with precision under his command. Civilians carried supplies and reinforced positions, and Marcus himself led ambushes where the enemy least expected. The battle was brutal, but Marcus's ingenuity and courage turned the tide. Dominion forces suffered massive losses and were forced to retreat once again. The city had survived, the princess was safe, and the council's skepticism had been replaced by awe. After the battle, Marcus walked through the city streets, observing the volunteers, the soldiers, and the people who had survived because of his leadership. Humans were not the strongest species, nor the most powerful, but their ability to adapt, to think differently, and to act decisively had saved Kaelor. Serenia joined him, her eyes reflecting both admiration and something deeper. I chose you, she said quietly. Not because of prophecy alone, but because you proved what humans are capable of. You are more than my protector. You are Kaelor's warborn. Marcus felt a rare warmth. Humans did not always receive recognition, and he was not one to seek it, but her words carried weight. His survival, his actions, and his courage had made a difference beyond himself. I only did what humans do, he said simply. Survive, protect, adapt, that's all. Serenia shook her head gently. No, that is enough to change history. That is enough to inspire generations. That is enough to be remembered. The council, now humbled, approached Marcus and Serenia with respect. They no longer questioned his place beside the princess. Instead, they sought his advice on strategy, defense, and coordination. The human who had been doubted and mistrusted had become the key to Kaelor's survival. In a quiet moment later that evening, Marcus and Serenia stood together overlooking the city, the twin moons casting silver light over the spires. The Dominion was not defeated yet, but Kaelor had survived. Humans had shown that courage, adaptability, and ingenuity could outmatch even the most powerful forces. Serenia looked at Marcus, her voice soft but full of conviction. I have chosen you. Long before you came, I knew you would be here, and now, you are the reason we survive. Marcus nodded, feeling the truth in her words. Humans were not legends by accident. They became legends because they refused to surrender, because they adapted when others fell, and because they protected what mattered most. Kaelor had witnessed the strength of humanity firsthand, and Marcus Hale, the human among aliens, had proven that even in a world of tradition, prophecy, and overwhelming odds, one human could change the course of history. The horizon of Kaelor Prime burned red under the incoming Dominion fleet. Hundreds of warships filled the sky, casting shadows over cities, forests, and mountains. This was the final assault, the battle that would decide the fate of the planet and of the warborn prophecy. Captain Marcus Hale stood atop the palace tower, surveying the approaching armada. He was calm, his eyes steady, his mind already calculating strategy, placement, and countermeasures. Beside him stood Princess Serenia, her silver hair catching the light of the twin suns, her expression calm but determined. This is it, she said quietly. The fleet we've been preparing for. Do you think we can stop them? Marcus glanced at her. We will stop them. Humans survive because we adapt, because we fight when others freeze, and we protect what matters most. That's all you need to know. Serenya's eyes softened, filled with admiration and trust. I chose you, Marcus. Not just for the prophecy, but because I knew you would act when it mattered. You are Kaelor's Warborn, Marcus nodded. Then let's make sure they remember what humans can do. The battle began with a roar. Dominion ships fired plasma cannons, tearing the skies and shaking the ground. The Kaelorian fleet responded, their ships agile and powerful yet outnumbered. Marcus's plan relied on ingenuity rather than brute force. He had coordinated the placement of orbital defenses, surprise strike teams, and trap zones that would disorient the Dominion. Deploy the ambush fleets here and here, he shouted, pointing at the holographic map. Focus fire on the comm.